You are changing your golf swing every time you set up to the ball. It's got nothing to do with your actual golf swing. I'm going to give you an incredible, it's not a secret, but it's a secret that most of you don't actually know or even think about. But there is a hidden aspect to your lack of consistency that most people totally ignore, and it all starts with the setup. So people get frustrated thinking, I don't have consistency, my swing changes all the time. If that sounds familiar to you, you're going to love this lesson. The distance you are standing from the ball totally transforms how the rest of your swing functions. Just by standing a little bit too far away is going to create dynamic movements in your swing that you cannot, or with a great amount of difficulty, try and compensate. I'm exaggerating, yes, but if we're too far away from the ball, your tendency is going to be to swing on the inside a bit too much here, then have to lift up and compensate to get back to it. Or you're going to end up trying to early extend to sort of maintain that radius that you've set up, but you're already out of balance. You're too much on your heels perhaps, the club is too far away, so naturally it's actually going to be coming a lot nearer because that's where my arms want to repeat themselves. If I'm too far away, I'm going to try very hard to not miss the ball, and by doing that I'm going to create compensation. So having a repeatable setup and distance from the ball to execute is going to make such a difference to you, because even if you're too close to it, that's also going to affect your swing. It's going to cause you to be a little bit more upright. It's going to be a bit harder to rotate. Various other things that are going to make it so that when you strike down to it, you're going to be a bit cramped. You might stall the body. But just hear me on this. The slightest change to the distance you are from the ball, even if it's an inch or two, is going to dramatically change the rest of your swing. So your swing isn't at fault most of the time. It's literally coming down to the radius you're setting up with. The second aspect I want to bring to your awareness is this club right here. This is a measuring stick. It's a tool that you can use every single shot you hit. Doesn't matter what club it is, because we need to set the radius for that specific club. But no one's doing this. This is a hidden accuracy, consistency weapon if you use it correctly. And I'm going to show you the routine that I want you to go with in a minute. But just to point out, when we have the club flat on the ground here and we keep it there, because that's where we want our ideal impact position to be, when we create our setup around this and stay static with it, it's going to create a consistent movement. But as soon as I raise my hands up a little bit, or I let my hands go a little bit, I'm now having to adjust. So this being a measuring stick of putting it in the ground as if it's stuck like glue, now I build my setup around that. And yes, this is where it does play a huge factor of having the clubs set up correctly to you. You know, for most people, they might have their clubs too flat a lot of the time, especially if you've got what we talk about, the shoulder plane type of swing, which most golfers do but don't realize it. Having a little bit more upright clubs is going to help you hit that position a bit more. If your clubs are a bit too flat, when you take your setup, your hands are going to be down here, so it's not an optimal setup. So already you're having to raise your hands a little bit, but they're going to want to compensate and get back to that natural position where they're at. No matter what club you're using, it's still a measuring stick. I had a 7-iron, but let's say I've got my sand wedge here. I'm going to place this in the ground, get it flat, and I'm going to build my setup around it. Likewise, driver, not on a T-peg, but I'm putting the driver down. Now I'm building my setup around it. That's how we find consistency. Point number 3, and this might highlight whether this is something you struggle with. If you find that when you get over the ball, you are fidgeting a lot, okay? You're moving around a lot, you're waggling a lot. A waggle, even though it used to be in pretty much all golf instruction, when you do this right, I promise you, you're going to have way more consistency. But if you find that you're waggling a little bit too much, that's going to cause you to try and get yourself comfortable, because the reason why you're waggling, it's not to create anything but inconsistencies, because you're trying to get comfortable. You're trying to find a movement, a way to start your swing. However, if you get better at finding your radius from the very start, you will not have to waggle. This is how I want you to piece it together. When you approach a shot, work on this in the practice range or even at home. You don't actually have to hit shots when you do this. But what I want you to do when you walk up to a shot, you're going to take your line. But what most people do is they stand there, get the feet right, and then try and put the club. What happens is we're not executing an organized system. The more systematic we can get, the more consistent you're going to be. The first task is to put the club right behind the ball and keep it flat with its flat angle, okay? You can do it with one hand and then place the second hand there to get that radius. But to make sure that you execute this correctly, I would actually urge you to form your grip first, okay? Then we're going to walk in and we're going to put the club down, keeping it flat here, right? Now I'm going to shuffle around a little bit, trying to find my balance point. And here's the thing. How do you know what's your perfect balance point? We're going to do a bit of a Goldilocks, if you will. So what we're going to do, we're going to put the club down and I'm actually going to stand what I feel is too far away. I can feel that's too far away. And now I'm going to try and hit a shot from here. That came right out the toe. Perfect example that wasn't my swing's fault, it was my radius's fault. Then I'm going to try again. I'm going to put this club directly down. I'm going to try and not move it as best I can. It's going to move a little, but I'm going to try and do a good job at keeping it still. But now I'm going to get a little bit too close to it, weight on the balls of my feet, or toes really. And now I'm going to try and swing. That's hard. So I've created a bit of awareness, spatial awareness for myself. So now I'm actually going to try and feel that I've got the good radius. So I'm going to move in and back, feeling balanced, to feel like, yes, from here, I can execute a golf swing that gives me the room that I want, that gives me the balance that I want, that gives me that consistent delivery through impact that I want. And it's so much easier when you get that radius right. So go through those steps. And remember, as you're practicing this, try and avoid waggling too much. Because waggling, shuffling, every single one of these is changing the radius from the ball. Put the club in the ground, find your perfect balance, and you will have more consistency, I promise you.